Hello everyone, and welcome to another horrific review. Well, tonight we are talking about 976 Evil. This is an old poster one. I remember it from ages ago. The poster was everywhere, and it was always up longer than the movie was out, so it was always an intriguing one. Good to revisit this. But basically, the premise of the story is people who dial 976 Evil receive supernatural powers and turn into satanic killers. When Spike dialed 976 Evil, he knew it was an expensive toll call, but he didn't know he'd have to pay for it with his soul. This one is so 80s it hurts. I mean, this is proper 80s horror. So sort of also this is directed by Robert Englund. It's always interesting to have a look. I don't know how many he's done. I need to check that out sometime. Maybe doing a little marathon or something on Robert Englund movies. I know he's acted in tons, but I don't know how many he's actually directed. So be interesting to look at. I don't think you could call a real number now. This, like I said, this is so 80s. So the 976 numbers, if I remember rightly, were American premium rate numbers, and they kind of delve into it in this show. So back in the day, you used your keypad, and like 1 to 9 had letter A. One was A, B, C, D, E, F, etc. And that's where they put the letters because then you basically dialed, so it'll give you a number. So what would evil be? I would need to have looked that up. But you basically 976, and then you dialed 2, 8, 3, 5. If I remember off the top of my head, no, I mean, you looked at your keypad and you just you typed the number with the corresponding number. And that's how it worked. It was an advertising trick as well because people would put that on. It meant they didn't have to type a big number on the screen and it was easy to remember. So if you looked and you spelled it out in your phone, even in the first mobile phones, if you think back to the old Nokias and Motorola's, they had the numbers on the keypads. That was where TextSpeak came from because that's what you used. It was also expediency, but cost as well. To send you used to have this. What was it? 10p a text or something? Some like it was ridiculously expensive to send an SMS message to people. Younger ones wouldn't even understand, but that's where TextSpeak came from as well. It's this whole idea of using the numbers for dual purposes, and for all intents and purposes, work quite well. So we start off, and this guy is getting chased. We get a bit of a premise, and he's running about your typical American 80s street, which is all dingy and dirty and hoary, and you name it. It's everything to extreme. That was the thing in the 80s movies. They always dialed everything up to 11. So a place couldn't be a little scuzzy. It had to be ultimate scuzzy. There's just no in between with it. The house, they couldn't be moderately Christian. They had to be super Christian. I mean, the white picket fence had to be super white picketed and super straight. There was no ambiguity with a lot of these movies, and that was they're almost like cartoons. If you think about it, there were just movie versions of cartoons. They just took that cartoon element and brought it out. And yeah, you can look back now and there's some questionable effects in this and cringe, but there's a sense of fun about it too. I mean, there was a sense of escapism that you weren't in the real world. I think that's a problem with today's media. They're trying to concentrate too much on the world today, like this very moment. And then there's no escapism. Where when you stepped into an 80s horror movie, you knew you were stepping out of your own world. Just the way it looked, even people walking down the street and dressed, because it was so amped up, it wasn't real. So you understood, you had that kind of understanding between you and the screen that you're suspending disbelief and stepping somewhere else. And I think with the whole idea of the grittiness today, they've went too far with that, and they've kind of lost the fun element. Now, there's a few movies pop up now and again that bring it back. Renfield, Destroy All Neighbors is one recently that come out. That's a perfect example of stepping out of the real world, and you're in this somewhere else. You're into another universe, and that does help you. Psychologically speaking, it helps you to just, okay, I'm switching off the logic centers. I'm getting into this. And that's kind of what these movies brought. And I miss that. I do miss that aspect. And the posters never look like the movie. That was one thing about 80s movies, is the posters always looked 100 times better than the actual movie itself. It was so strange. You knew you were getting for a letdown too, because the artwork on them and the whole premise behind the poster and the design, these always made these movies look fantastic and brilliant. But when they went on screen, you're kind of like, that's not it. But you kind of learned that as well. You know, that was part of the suspension of disbelief of you're going into another world. Look now with posters, you don't have it anymore. Like, you look at a lot of movie posters now, and they're so bland and generic and interchangeable. And the idea that no efforts went into them. Who gets excited for movies in general anymore? Like, who does? Nobody. No, leave aside the fact that everything's a requel, prequel, reboot, remake, rehash, regurgitation. Leave that aside, but just look at the poster, the trailers, I just watched the Beetlejuice one, and honestly, I'm not excited. Not the fact that it's like 30 years too late, but, I'm just not excited. Where when these sort of movies come out, and their poster and their trailer and everything else, you were ramped up. You knew you were going for a good time. You knew that the people behind it were trying to make you have a good time. Yeah, there were problems. I mean, Hollywood's Hollywood. They're still scumbags. But for some reason, there had a sense of they were able to rein it in and understand they were doing their job. And then when things went wrong, you could tell immediately on screen, and usually they're punished for it immediately. Once they did a bad movie because they were arsing about in the background with their shenanigans, they were punished, and they were punished hard. And there were studios and departments of studios closed down over it. Now it seems to be everyone's propping each other up like some weird Ponzi scheme, rather than actually, like, there'd be entire divisions closed down for making a bad product back in the day, and people would direct something and it'd be abysmal and it would never work again. Now it seems to be the opposite. People fail up. It's very strange. But yeah, this movie, the bad and the good, because this film is hokey. Like, trust me, it is. Like, don't go into this expecting to be blown away by or mesmerized by anything. It's proper hokey stuff. But there's also an element of fun to it, so you can forgive it. Think of Return of the Living Dead, but not as good. It's that sort of sense about it. Yeah, it was funny because even in the 80s, like, we were always on the brink of nuclear war. There was always this sense of the world going to get wiped out at any minute. And I think that as well, kind of brought this sense of, yeah, we could all die tomorrow, so we may as well make the most of today. Where people are willingly depressed today. I mean, people are willingly miserable. And I don't get it. Like, people willingly want to live in this strange mindset of victimhood and oppression and, whatever. They just want to wake up every day and be fucking miserable bastards. And they wallow in it. And it's it's 100% self-generated. All you have to do is say you're not playing anymore, and instantly you're taken out of that game. The minute you're not part of that game, you're good. And it doesn't matter. Real life is real life. There's good days, there's bad days, there's extremely shit days. We've all got it. But you can muddle through. But today, it's just like the whole mindset. And I think that sort of shows in the filmmaking. And I always get a bit philosophical when I look back on these movies. I don't think it's even nostalgia. Because I don't know, back in the day we were going through our own things and you had our own life to lead, and these were escapism, pure and simple. And it wasn't just the movies themselves. I think it was the whole idea. You got a movie with your mates. Like, who does this anymore? You went to the video store and you almost booked the TV. If you didn't, I'm talking about before because it was really the 90s, late 80s, 90s, that people had TVs in their own rooms and their own video. I mean, that was expensive. So you had the TV with the video recorder, the VHS machine, and you sort of went, can we have the TV tonight? And you went with your mates and you rented a movie and you got sweets and popcorn and stuff and you made a night of it. It was like it wasn't going to the cinema, it was like a mini cinema event. We went to the cinema as well, but we made a thing of it. Where people don't get that anymore, and it's that sense of connection. And I think this movie and movies like it sort of represent that. And you can understand why there's a lot of nostalgia, even from generations that haven't lived in this era, wanting to look back on it. God, there was horrible times. Like, if you remember watching a VHS video, like the thing was grainy as hell, and you had the whir and all, and you couldn't just pause. It was if it paused, there's a chance of breaking the actual tape. You know what I mean? Things were so clunky back then. Sound systems were nothing compared to today. So you made up with it with other things, and that was community and friendship and just that sense of fun. And I think the marketing people and the ones that had to make these movies understood that they were limited. So they went for that kind of sense of fun. But today you don't have that. But we've got this. We've got a guy getting chased around, like I said, and we've got all the hokey 80s lightning happening. The worst thing about this is the telephone sound. It's a distorted telephone sound. And I know what they're trying to do. It's a demonic telephone. It's not a normal ring. And this guy's getting chased, and everywhere he is, there's a phone ringing. And this is back in the day of landlines. Didn't have mobile phones. Phones were tied to a wall, so you'd either phone in a premises, a store, or payphones. And essentially what you see is this guy getting chased around, and eventually he breaks, he answers the phone, and then everything just goes up in flames. Woof. He's toast. Then we meet the strangest family in history. And this is classic, just 80s out there. It's not this universe. So we have Aunt Lucy with her son Hoax. And they're just your type. She's your holy roller type, speaks with a southern accent. Everything's a sin. And Hoax is just a classic kid who's been bowbrit his whole life by his domineering mother, and he's picked on in school, and he just, and he's a bit of a creep. And there's a bit of a message here, which, once again, is subtle, but if you constantly bang on to someone about sex all the time, and it's a whole abstinence versus indulgence thing, if you constantly go on about sex, 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 that's all it's going to be the forefront in somebody's mind. When you're doing that, it's bad sex. You're just making it more alluring. And what the person's going to do is not have a healthy sexual relationship. They're instantly going to go into deviancy because they don't know how to express themselves. And then it doesn't, and I'm not talking about fetishes or kinks, I'm talking about just deviancy where they can't have a baseline emotional connection with someone and then a sexual relationship. You kind of need to have a rapport with someone at least to enjoy the thing, or else it's pointless. So that's what she's done. So effectively he's a peeping Tom, and his cousin Spike is living with them. And this is one of these everyone lives in a 5-story house with extensions and like mini mansions all over the place. So he has his room across, like, even the way it's set up, Spike's room's here, but he looks across a courtyard into like a separate building where Spike lives, and he effectively has his own like house. Now, once again, these are high school kids. Just sorry, just the way they portrayed high school kids back in the day. This guy's a fully grown adult. He's running about in a Harley, which I found out later his dad had left him because his parents had died, and it seems to be under tragic circumstances. It was never explored. He lives in his own house. He's got his own telephone line. He's this, that. He basically comes and goes as he pleases. And for some reason, they've set up the weird message shoot thing where you put a bottle in, whoosh, up the tube it goes, and Hoax leaves him messages. It's all very strange, but effectively, Hoax is a peeping Tom. He's got a telescope pointing right across because when Spike brings his girlfriend home, he's like getting off on it, you know. And once again, that's that whole when you're vibrating someone about sex all the time, their brain is going to get fucking twisted. And it could be food, it could be anything, but when you're like constantly on someone's case and you're not even giving them a chance, like breathing room to explore, you know, and I think that's that whole provide a safe environment, try to teach people to be careful, but at the same time, if you're broken yourself, then you're not gonna be a good role model for anyone else. And we see Aunt Lucy, she is a horrible person. She hides behind the whole holy roller Christian thing, and she's dialing in and making pledges to the mega church, you know, the give $10 for Jesus today, you know, all that kind of shit. And this was a thing of the 80s that, you know, these things were, you know, the phone lines, the TV station. So she's nowhere near in a position to preach because she's addicted to this. She's getting her fix by pledging her so many dollars at a time. And then we find out it's her sister's money she's spending as well. So like a trust fund left for Spike, and he can't touch it until he's 21, and she's effectively spending the money, you know, on what she wants. And it's like, so this is not a good person. And it's that whole hypocrisy and projection and addiction, and it just manifests in different ways. You know what I mean? It's all as destructive. There's no difference between being a sex pest or an alcoholic or someone that's addicted to phone lines, you know, and that's what the whole 976 evil is. It's a card, and it's a Spike has it. It's one of them, put forward as one of them dopey horoscope lines. And Spike rings it up. He gets this, what is it? Yeah, because he wanted money. He lost money in a poker game. Because in high school, you can afford to go and play poker all night. But he's supposedly no money. He still run his Harley, go to school. Like the universe, like I said, you stepped into Unreal World and you kind of knew it and you accepted it. That's why I got that whole big premise. Because if you looked at this logically, it makes no sense. And they're sitting, him and his schoolmates are sitting in a cinema that plays horror movies all night. God, $1.99 a ticket. Remember the days. Flip say, cost you an arm and a leg. There maybe is a bit of that. You could actually afford to go, like 20 quid would get you the whole weekend. You could afford to go out all night, and it was no bother. So you can almost see them with the wads of cash. You know, high school students just whiling their nights away, no problem. But it's just part of the ridiculous of the universe, and I think we were more primed for that we could let things go and not worry about the reality of it because it makes no sense. Yeah, he was going to have to hand his bike over the next day because he bet high and lost. So he rings the horoscope for some reason, and he was told to basically take what he wanted. So he goes and nicks the money and pays back his friend, etc. You know, but then he loses interest. He throws the card away. That's kind of the end of Spike's story. You know, and that was his introduction. He did the one thing, and then he never bothered. Sorry, he rang it a second. No, he rang it a second time. And he refused to do, what was it he was told to do? He was told to do something, he wouldn't do it, and then the thing rang him back, and that's when he understood it was evil. And an investigative reporter, came because, what was it? Oh, the fish coming from the sky. You know, fish fell from the sky or something. Could have been anything. But yeah, we'll then just carry on, and then it becomes Hoax's story. Hoax then rings it up, and the thing knows that he's susceptible. Sorry. Oh, excuse me. Oh my God. And the other one was brilliant. Sorry about that. I don't know if you noticed it. I just knew that one was coming. I'm like, oh my god, always when I had live. Yeah, Hoax is bullied in school. Spike steps in and helps him out. This is another one of the economy of Spike's character because they've got him down as the hard man, but he's actually a good guy. But the character isn't played well enough that you have any sympathy. You know, he's a bit of a non-character. He's more of a plot device. This is all Hoax's story. Hoax then rings a line. He's told he can be with the woman of his dreams, which is Spike's girlfriend, who's already perved on. And he ends up in a situation and he goes down to where the cinema is and he ends up spending time with his girlfriend, Spike's girlfriend, and they're having pizza together, which is the weirdest scene ever because they're effectively sharing a plate of pizza and it's made to be awkward. But he's taking a bite and then he's sitting around her side and stuff. It was just all, the whole thing was just awkward. If he was having a slice of pizza, he just had the slice of pizza. You know, they made it into a whole thing. It was just weird. But sure enough, he is doing that, and then Spike's friends come in and start to pick on him again. He swiped her because there was a sex scene, and she left her knickers with him, with Spike, and took a pair of his pants for some reason because it makes no sense. But it was all for a plot device because basically Hoax sneaks into Spike's room and nicks her, you know, steals her panties, sticks them in his back pocket, and then proceeds to go out effectively on a pseudo date with her because, yeah, that's what happens. But I suppose you can understand, like, there's a tragedy to Hoax. He doesn't know how to act appropriately. He can't talk to his mother. He doesn't have a father in the house, so he can't talk to him. He doesn't really have any friends. Spike tolerates him and looks out for him, but he's no rapport. You know, they don't sit and have conversations together. So what you've got here is a lost soul that has nowhere to turn. So, like I said, it's going to turn to deviancy. He doesn't know how to process and have normal relationships. So yeah, he's going to be sneaking in the Spike's room afterwards, and he sees the lady's underwear, and of course he's going to steal them and stick them in. And while he's fantasizing about Spike's girlfriend because he can feel that she's attainable, you know, and you know, because that's what happens when your brain's twisted. You just don't deal with things normally. So of course that gets found out because when they're roughing him about, what do you call her? Angela goes to stick up for him. And then that's when they pull out her pants, you know, from his back pocket, and then she instantly turns off him, like, thought you were different. This is where it really ramps up. So we get the impression that anyone else has just been like a test run. And the phone line was looking for the right candidate, which in this case is Hoax. So we now see Hoax going and performing like a pure ritual. And of course, we'll have the pentagram, we'll have the candles. And yes, he then takes his tarantula. He keeps the tarantula in a cage. Weird, you know. They loved tarantulas in the 80s. They were the scary spider and they were used for everything. Which is a shame because you actually have to be really careful with tarantulas. If you drop a tarantula, you can kill it, you know, there and then. They really are fragile, actually, and not many of them can actually hurt a human. It's only like the larger Amazonian bird-eating spiders that have a chance to pierce your skin. They're the most this tarantula actually do to you is throw its hairs, you know, in defense to irritate you to leave it alone. But it's the same as Doberman and Rottweilers. You know, this was the 80s. This is the scary thing. And the way they use snakes as well. I think they don't have the effect now because a lot of us are more understanding. And I think the Patriots help as well because we do. They're the most benign. Like if you have a pet spider, like it's the least exciting thing. It's exciting thing you're gonna have. It just sits there, you know, feeds once a week. That's it. But yeah, he casts a spell then effectively and sells his soul, and them have the whole thing with Angela. Like, she just went out for the night and effectively had a full pizza. Like, I'm talking about like 18 to 20 odd inch, massive thing. And yet she's making herself dinner. Like, but the spell starts getting cast. Of course, when she opens the tinfoil thing, it's full of spiders, and she's getting, terrorized by it. And Hooks can kind of see through the spell what's happening. And then he crushes his own spider. He like crushes it, and then she just dies instantly. I think that was the minute where he's went further than anyone else that's used the phone line. In the meantime, we have this reporter type person, like a paranormal investigator who Aunt Lucy had called to talk about the fish. And he sort of realized Spike's connected this, and he sort of tries to talk to him, and he goes to investigate the 976 number. And it's effectively a call center. And it's what you would expect. What was that Aerosmith song? If anybody can remember in the chat, where they did the video where it's the guy he's on the phone line. And he's living the fantasy, and it turns out it's just, it just fades, and you see the reality of the worker on the other line, just nothing compared to, what he's imagining. That's what we're seeing here. Like, of course, it's the sleaziest sleaze bucket of all places. Someone pretend to be Santa Claus, and he's just alcoholic, swigging away. Hello, little girl, and he's a big dirty beard, all matted and stuff, person pretend to be the sex worker. It's like every room has someone fulfilling a different desire, sort of thing. And here's this one because we'll have, it was called Dark Studios or something, and we meet David Dark, and it's Robert Picardo, which is a strange role for him to be playing if you know him from Star Trek. The Voyager one, the one that got lost, he played the Doctor. So you have Robert Picardo playing like the orchestrator of all this, and the investigator's asking about the 976 evil line, the tarot one, and he says it was a machine an experiment, and it's all closed down, but the apparatus is still set up. And there's something you had to suspend disbelief. It was all wired up with cassette tapes and everything else. But I tell you what, this is what inspired my generation to want to try things and build things. There's no way this machine could have worked, or could it? And that's where you kind of had the idea that you could build things. Like, my thing was connecting a Nintendo system into PC. Like, that was the greatest thing I'd done, using the TV card and stuff, and getting that all built up and having the controllers going through it. So you played, the games on your PC. It was brilliant. It was back in the 90s. Obviously, there's people more technically minded than me. The same as the day as a ham radio and stuff. You had to physically connect things. You had to make it work. It's the same as recording stuff off the radio, and even like when I tried playing guitar many years ago, like when I was a kid, could you record directly onto the tape? So it was how to connect the guitar through the amp, but the amp into so you weren't recording sound wise, if that made sense. Got all the distortion, you were trying to get a clean recording. And these were things that we all tried back in the day. You know what I mean? You had the aux cable, you had all sorts. And that was the whole idea. That was the ingenuity that came from this era. And the machine here, you see that David Dark's built. You looked at that back in the day and you went, could I do that? And there was always secondhand stores, and there was always junk, what do you have in America? Radio Shacks. We had independent. We didn't have like a major retailer. We had independent retailers for all that kind of stuff. But there's also secondhand stores. So that's what you did. You bought secondhand dictaphones and recorders and all. You know what I mean? Nothing was ever getting built, but for the thousands of us that did, there was that one person that then created the dictaphone, for example. that created the mini cassette, that created the first MP3. That's where that all stems from. And we're seeing none of that today. And I think that's why this is a special era. Because you see stuff like that and you're like, there's no way that can work. I wonder though. I know, and that was always the back of your head. I wonder. And that's where you try to do stuff. I'd say Legos do count. I started off with Legos. I would build stuff, and it was never, when you built the thing in the box once, and then it went into the Lego pile. That was always the thing about Lego as well. You had the Lego box, and yeah, you would have got the shiny new thing, and you would have built it, and you looked at it for a while, and then you got bored, so it all got broken down and went in the box, and then you just made your own things. I think the problem with Lego today has become like an almost elite thing, where the box sets are that expensive, it's prohibitive. It's not something you give kids to play with. It's for adult collectors now. So even the aspect of Lego and the tactility, the only people doing it are either super rich kids or adults who have already had that experience. And I think that's something that I'm not saying like we're far from perfect. There was loads of flaws, and I love the digital age. I love the fact that I can sit and do this. If it wasn't for modern technology, we would not be doing this right now. But there's something about tactility. There's something about trend, like building a bridge out of Lego would be a good example. Have you ever done that like when you're a kid, tried to build that bridge and then you overweighed it and it fell over? Or you tried to build a vehicle to do something and you overweighed it and it fell over, or it wasn't, and you tried to make either the axle longer or shorter to build the thing. Back to people used to we didn't really get that much snow, but when we did, we got sleds. We built them because you wouldn't own a sled because there's no point in my country because I never got the snowfall enough to have them. So we would have made our own. The odd time it snowed, we got excited. And there's the one hill in my neighborhood that you could actually use. That's what gets you thinking. That's what gets you problem solving. And it may not directly lead you into that field, but it's that whole, it's like a muscle. Your brain is a muscle. And if you don't exercise it, then it becomes flabby like everything else. And that's something I think is missing today. There isn't that tactility where you get a response. And then I think that's why part of the reason why people can't connect as well, and it's all done digitally, where I think you need a balance. Like people now that have mainly dealt digitally, like a handshake is anathema to them. It's strange, but that's where we are. And there's this whole thing of playing with cables and wires, and does this fit? And then if something blows up, what did I do? And you try not to do it again, and you mightn't understand the technical terms, but you learn something. But yeah, we realize as well, like back to the movie, we know something fishy's going on, but it looks all innocent on the surface. And then we realize that there's magic at play here, because if that's shut down and he's just left that it was an invention of his, and he said it cost him more in electricity than the money it made, I very much doubt that with those lines. And that was the thing as well. There's another parallel to today, actually. I say how the eras are different, but there's also similarities you can take. Look at people who go to OnlyFans and Twitch and throw money at these people thinking they're going to have a relationship and it's fake. Well, that's always existed. I'm going to see it with these 976 numbers. There's people having pseudo relationships in place of real ones. And yes, while it's fine for an indulgence, you need to balance it out. It's even good for practice. If you're a nervous person, why not try something online where you have that bit of protection? But then you have to take a next step in the real world, where the damaging part, and this is what this shows, the damaging part is if you think this is real, and if you replace real life experiences with a pseudo experience. And the scene in the offices here kind of shows that they're all having pseudo experiences, because the person at the other end might be sounding convincing, but they don't care. You're just another number. And we see it happening today. I think the difference is today people are more militant about everything, and because I must see the story, like the story of hoax is told as much today as it is back then. You know, I mean, hoax is a tragic story, and it's just showing you where it can go if you don't know how to build healthy relationships. And it's not about becoming, because this was the 90s thing then, was the idea to beat the jocks, the bullies, was to become one of them. So, go do loads of weights, become the bully. But we saw in the 80s, well, having personality. So if you weren't physically stronger, well, you made friends with the person that was. And the person that was physically stronger was usually lacking somewhere else. And then you help them out with that bit. And then they protect you. You know what I mean? Everything's a trade off in life. We're all not 100%. We're all not, you know, omnipotent beings. We're humans. We have our flaws, we have our weaknesses as well as our strength, and we'll learn to balance out the the strengths with the weakness. Like I can come across as a very straight laced sort of person. So when I interact with someone who's more jokey and sense of fun, I can trade off that. At the same time, if somebody's way too out there, I can rein them in, and we can have conversations. It's all about that, even just personalities and balance, and it's how we build communities, it's how we build friendships, it's how different people can find commonality and come together. Sorry, I'm going on a bit of a rant here. Just there's not a massive plot to this because it kind of goes on. Basically what we're seeing is Hoax becoming a demon, and it's next when we see him that he encounters the bullies again, but he's now got the demonic power, and he essentially just rips him a new one. And we see the claws appear. Then he's starting to transform more and more. The strangest bit with this, there's this random teacher, and God, I can't remember who her name is. Yeah, sorry, Mark Dark, not David Dark. This teacher comes into the fray, and Hoax gets randomly fixated on her, and somehow she gets involved in the plot. I'm still scratching my head trying to figure out how she became involved. She's just like inserted, just like plop. She wasn't there, and then next minute she's involved, writing everything. And I was like, "Where do you come from?" I think it would have been better if they had kept Angela alive and had her kidnapped or something. So I think if they had maybe another person, and then Spike would have had a reason to go to the house, etc. This is where this film kind of really messes up. Spike doesn't have any motivation or real loyalty towards Hoax. He feels more of an obligation because he's staying at the house. But there's no real love, or there's no real kinship between them. And we know that Spike, once the opportunity arises, he's gone. He's not hanging around. So that part of the story didn't sell. Killing Angela should have had a friend, or there should have been a friend in one of the. In fact, they did have a girlfriend in the group, or had not had a friend in the group. Girl, he should have had another one that he maybe fixated on, or met her and she was nice to him and betrayed him. This is where it kind of gets jumbled up, and this movie doesn't have legs. We don't have a motivation for Spike to go and rescue anybody, or to go and try and save Hoax, because all intents and purposes, Spike should have just been on his bike and away. So we didn't get that sense. The teacher, what was she there for? Like, she was just inserted sort of halfway through the movie, and really we got no sense of her or having any connection with Hoax or Spike or anybody. I mean, this weird sexualized scene with Hoax in full demon mode. I don't think it was more to give the audience a bit of titillation as opposed to any purpose. So that kind of goes out the window. We then have the whole, hell's frozen over, that, Spike and Hoax fall out. It was the most contrived thing possible, and it's purely just for the plot. And that didn't work because once again, you had no sense of it. I think Hoax should have kidnapped Spike's girlfriend, and she should have still been alive. And I think Spike should have went to rescue her. then it would have made sense. Now, maybe they were trying to take a different, do something different with the movie, but what they replaced it with, this is sometimes when it's better to go safe because what they replaced it with wasn't better. So maybe they were trying to subvert expectations, but they didn't. What they do is they just make you kind of go, all right, okay. And when you've no investment, you're just kind of watching the shiny lights. There's just a strange scene where they're climbing the pipes from one house to another, and you can just tell it's in a green screen. And you're just like, what the hell have we got that in the green screen for? And it's so hokey, but it's so that the gates of hell can open underneath the garden, So it kind of made sense why they were doing it, but it just looked so bad that you're instantly taken out of it. I don't know how they could have fixed it. They maybe should have had cut shots, better use of cut scenes. So when they're actually really crawling across between the two houses, and then the scene where the pit opens. But yeah, that was it. It's the investigative reporter and the teacher escape, and then Spike escapes, and Hoax is thrown back into hell, or thrown into hell with the demon that's possessed him, and that's kind of it. It was your bog standard for trying to subvert expectations. It was your bog standard ending to a horror movie, which was fine. But once again, this is where you need investment in the characters so you can forgive all this stuff. Like, I'm instantly looking at this going, what the hell? I wasn't worrying about the teacher or the investigative reporter because I've no emotional connection to them. And I've no emotional connection to why they would be chasing after Hoax to try and save him. Because once again, there's no reason. The guy doesn't have any close relationships, even with Spike, so there's no reason to save him. Their only reason to go is to maybe save the world. But I don't understand Spike getting involved. That's what I'm saying. You don't get the motivation of the characters. It's all very play by the book and put out there, so you're not invested. So you're just kind of going along for the ride. But it wasn't terrible. It might sound like I'm being overcritical. It wasn't a terrible movie. It was a fun watch. The idea behind the phone line, it's a product of its era. I don't think you can really translate it today unless it was an online thing, like an online, a streaming platform. I think that's the only way you could translate it, but it doesn't work. It's just not even the, what do you call it, them dialing phone lines with the girls in the studios, they're gone. And there's no organization because it's all done independently now. All they do is rent out the platform space, like Twitch and OnlyFans, and Kick. It's the other one, right? I mean, those platforms are just rental spaces, and you can either do that sort of stuff or you don't. It's entirely up to yourself. So if this is streaming to Twitch right now, and I'm not getting my kid off, that would be a horror movie. But you know what I mean? All they are is a rental space, so there's no actual overarching entity. I'm not being hired by anybody to sit here and talk, and they're the same. So that whole aspect's gone. So I don't think this could translate into a remake today, for example. It just wouldn't work. Yeah, that's it. It's a fun. You're not really meant to. These were what they're designed. And I think that's why I'll give the whole premise of you're stepping into another universe. It's not going to make sense because it's not meant to be reality. And that's all these were designed. This is where the term popcorn flick comes from. You're just meant to go have a laugh at things, get a wee bit of like it really annoyed me when he killed the parrot because there's no need for that. Once again, he didn't have the animosity built up there. Just made no sense. Yeah, that's all they are. They're just a wee bit of entertainment for an hour and a half. You're not meant to think too deeply into it. Just go with it. Accept its flaws. And as long as you get the idea that you're trying to tell a story, and trying to entertain you, which is what I got from this. Could have done a lot better? Absolutely. Is it some sort of deep thought piece? No. It's a horror movie. You know, I mean, it's a no, it's a supernatural flick. You know, it's not a wanted you to think about society and where we are. Although there is a bit of that woven in, and that's what I'll say. And if you go back to our morality and horror discussion, there's always a bit of a moral tale with a horror story because that's why it's horror. It's when things go wrong, and it's this whole message of, you know, don't build pseudo relationships, build real relationships. That's what'll get you through life. It's your connections to friends and family and community. If you don't have that, you're truly lost, and then you're susceptible for exploitation. And it might just be a demon from hell or just somebody with no scruples whatsoever, you know, with the phone lines. But you always have the choice. And that was kind of, there's a lot of themes like that's like you have the choice to either indulge or not. You can see this, and while it looks all cool and fun on the surface, is empty. And you even see it with Spike's friends. They're not friends. They'll not stick with each other in the end. They're a bunch of misfits who are going nowhere in life, who like misery loves company type thing. But they're not really going to do anything, you know, and it's not really going to achieve anything. But there you go. That's enough. That's enough preaching. Hope it wasn't too preachy with this one. It's strange how these movies bring out that philosophical side of me, and it's completely not their intention. Or maybe it was. Who knows? But there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Now, I do believe there is a sequel. I'm going to look it up, and if there is, I might do it on Sunday. But we'll see. If I can find it, I'll have a look. And if it's the same, if it's maybe Hoax coming back and they're carrying on with it, I'll have a look. But hope you enjoyed it anyway. So, as always, keep updated with the channel, do the type of things. Until next time, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.